Computer's acting funny today. We're towards the end of Nehemiah. I think we're in... Oh wait, no. We're in Esther today. Ha! I totally forgot where I was. Okay, we're in Esther today. Awesome. Esther is a good topic to discuss with Esther is how God uses our gifts. Esther is a very beautiful woman. I know that's something that the feminists are trying to destroy, but the reality is there's a lot of beautiful women out there, and God can use that beauty for His purposes. You know, if I were a beautiful woman, I would probably already have 10 million subscribers, but I'm not. I'm go up now, thou bald head, you know. So I don't have that. But if I did, He could probably use that to His advantage. That's what Esther uses. Now, does she put that at the forefront and take that for granted? No, she doesn't. She goes to God first. She prays to God first. She puts God ahead of her beauty. She could put her beauty first and take confidence in that, but she doesn't. She always puts God at the forefront. It's a very action-packed story. We're going to get into it in a minute. Mordecai is the other main character of the book, and then, of course, the villain, which is Hanan or Haman. I can't remember if it's an N or an M. And then, of course, Xerxes. So we'll get into all of that. We'll start in prayer right now, and then we'll start reading. But I want you to think about that, though. You take for granted what God gives you. Don't do that. Even if maybe you're not very attractive, you know, but maybe you have some kind of weird quirk or skill. He can use it. But the point is to put Him at the forefront. Put Him first. Right? Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. Start in prayer. After this manner, therefore pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Amen. The Book of Esther. The significance of the Book of Esther is that it testifies to the secret watch care of Jehovah over dispersed Israel. That's another main theme, obviously. This guy, Hanan or Haman, let me just look it up. Is it Haman or Haman? Let's just find out. Haman, okay. This guy Haman gets a law passed that says on this date you can kill Jews. And obviously with such a ridiculous law, and that was passed without the king's knowledge, basically, and or when he was lazy or distracted. So I don't think the king would have normally approved that, but it got through because of this lowlife. But it actually works to the Jews' advantage. Okay, You want to kill Jews on this date? Well, the Jews, there's another law we're going to pass. The Jews every Jew gets a Thompson submachine gun. And as soon as you make a move against them, they're going to gun you down. Well, that's not exactly the law, but they were allowed to defend themselves also. See, the law before by itself would have been, they just have to stand there and die. But another law gets passed to say they get to defend themselves, so they prepare. They probably set up, super defenses and all kinds of spears. Everybody get a spear and a Thompson, and it actually turns out in their favor. So all the people that were planning to kill them, they get to wipe them out, and it's all good. I'm jumping the gun though. The bottom line is God defends them. God can overrule something that Satan has been planning. In my opinion, these three books, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, I think that's an illustration of how Satan is trying to get his plan across. God allows them to go into captivity because he can't tolerate their sin, obviously, but God doesn't allow his faithful remnant and his people to fall into complete annihilation, obviously. So I keep saying obviously, but it is, I don't know. He's not going to allow that to happen. He's going to overrule the situation. And that's what happens here. That stupid law is passed. But God gets Esther in favor with the king. Her beauty didn't hurt, but it was ultimately God who intervened in that situation to allow that to happen. And of course, it's the cooperation between Esther and Mordecai. A lot to discuss. I think we'll just get into it, right? Let me finish this introduction. The name of God does not once occur, but in no other book of the Bible is his providence more conspicuous. A mere remnant returned to Jerusalem. The mass of the nation preferred the easy and lucrative life under the Persian rule, but God did not forsake them. What he here does for Judah, he is surely doing for all the covenant people. The book is in 7 parts. The story of Vashti, Esther made queen, the conspiracy of Haman. Notice the conspiracy. People, conspiracy theorists. Well, here's conspiracy. The courage of Esther brings deliverance, the vengeance, the feast of Purim, and epilogue. The events recorded in Esther cover a period of 12 years. Usher. But yeah, what that introduction is saying, what he here does for Judah, he is surely doing for all the covenant people. Think about the things that God is doing for you behind the scenes. It's wonderful to think about how, and it's humbling too, to think about how God is protecting me, protecting you, how he's impacting us, how maybe he's guiding our lives, and you could take it all for granted and just roll your eyes at it. But really, the reality is he is protecting you, and he is with you. And he can overrule Satan, like he does here in this book. Chapter 1, the story of Vashti, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name. Which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 and 20 provinces. I think Another name for him is Xerxes, right? 2. That in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. So remember, Babylon, then Medo-Persian Empire. So Babylon was the first empire, the head of gold that we'll see in Daniel. We've got a ways to go before we get to Daniel, but Babylon was sacked on that night. Nebuchadnezzar's son, Mene Tekel Upharsin, they get sacked, they get wiped out, and they get taken over by the Persian and Medes, Medo-Persian Empire. Four, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law, none did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Do what thou wilt, I guess. This guy isn't... It sounds like they're boozing it. Everybody... I don't understand how that's written there. And the drinking was according to the law. If you don't drink, I don't trust you if you don't have a drink. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house. They should do according to every man's pleasure. I think pleasure of the day would be drinking a bunch of booze. I don't know. Jack isn't feeling too good. He's getting old. He's having trouble with his back legs. Well, I can't pet you the whole time. I gotta get into the Bible here. Okay. Sit. Sit. Lay down. Sorry. Okay. 9. Also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abigtha, Zethar, and Carcas, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. Jack, lay down. I can't keep petting you. To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Sorry, he's leaning against the desk. The point is, I think this was the example of the first feminist. I'm sorry. She's beautiful, but you got a bunch of fat slobs that just want probably a strip tease or something, Hopefully it's not that perverted of a situation, but it might be, you know. But instead of obeying her husband, she is the queen. She says, "Nya." I mean, that might be a different situation. I don't know the Medo-Persian culture. Maybe it was something really perverted. But she's not obeying her husband, and fat slobs to look on her, you know. Or maybe it's more lighthearted. Maybe it's just a situation where the king is a fat slob, but he is the king. It's good to be the king, and he's got this really attractive 25-year-old, super gorgeous Vashti queen beauty, you know. And she just won't even, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what's going on here. It's pretty self-explanatory. 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shithar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law, because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains? And Memucan answered before the king and the princes Vashti, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. Yeah, because she's not obeying the king. And what's going to happen is he's going to get a divorce. We don't know what happened to Vashti after this, you know. Gets a divorce and has her hung or gets her head chopped off. I don't know. That would be a shame. Beauty to do that. Or maybe she just became his sub-concubine, or, you know, she gets an additional palace over here. She can live there, but she is, I need a new wife now because she's so disobedient. I don't know. But you're his queen, husband and wife. You should obey your husband. See, this is, like I said earlier, the first feminist. The feminists today don't need men. You know, that's the whole thing. Husband and wife today, the reality is, I am hers. I am her property. I said this the other day. She is my property. But see, it's an equal partnership. Now the man he is not doing good. The man is meant to lead, I think, but the man shouldn't belittle her or dominate her, certainly. I mean, it's, the man has gifts and skills. He completes her. But see, what feminism has done today has said, no, we don't need men. Okay? We don't need them. Because they're such bigots, and they voted for Trump. Okay? We don't need any man. And of course, why are all the women going nuts today? Because there's no man around. Why are all the men unhappy? Because there's no woman around. Feminism has destroyed all that, because you can only be a strong woman today. Strong woman that doesn't need a man. And You could go off on a tangent about feminism today and how it's so screwed up. The reality of the biblical perspective on that is go all the way back to Genesis, and that word for helpmeet, the actual, as I understand it, is the actual translation is other self. And so the reality in the biblical sense, I think, is that a woman completes the man, and the man completes the woman, and when they're apart, they're not complete. When they're together, man and woman together, they become one person, and they're given that miraculous gift of creating a new life form. It's a mystery, and it's amazing. It's incredible. But I think there's psychological things associated with, having a wife or having a husband. I think they complete each other on so many levels. The problem today is men have not done their job, and so the result is women don't want to do their job. Men have become all trendy little lowlifes. Thus, women responds to that, and she says, I don't need that. Or men have become a lot of other bad stuff. But the result is women don't, And then you ask the question, why does a woman turn to homosexuality? Or why does the man turn to homosexuality? Because the gender roles have been so screwed up. Women aren't allowed to be women anymore because it's socially unacceptable. Women have been brainwashed to think that they don't need men anymore. And then you wonder why all the mental illness, all the sadness, all the depression. I think about my coworker at my old job. She's not to be offensive, but she is a lesbian, or was. I don't know now. I haven't talked to her in a long time, but she had triplets by this guy. And then the guy beat her and abandoned her with these 3 kids or 2 kids. I don't know, triplets or twins. But then I met her, I guess she's middle-aged, somewhere in her 40s, and she's trying to raise these young people, and it's so hard, it's so sad. And she's got a girlfriend from one of the other workers at the store, scary lady. So ended up being on my side, though. She ended up liking me, but initially she hated me. She wanted me to die. But yeah, very sad, because man failed her, and that's why she turned to that. I'm not justifying her sin. I'm just telling you how Satan has screwed up everybody. Satan has screwed us all. We're all screwed now. Because now I can't have a wife, and she can't have a husband that's not a lowlife. So now we're all screwed. Same thing with Xerxes. He's screwed now, because this was the first feminist. Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of other examples, right? End of Jeremiah. Look at that. Oh, the women are ruling over the men there. Or think of Judges, where Barak is such a wuss that he won't go into battle. Susanna, I need you to go first. I can't go, okay? Right? That was the first sign of men failing women right there. We could go on and on. I'm sorry. We're screwed. We're all screwed up. Satan has screwed up everything. Here's another example. Man, originally, in my job, my stupid little job, general store clerk, I could have had that job, 70 years ago. I could have had that job. I'd be making enough money to pay for my wife and my 2 kids, and I would have been okay, and I wouldn't be bankrupt. Today, I would not have enough money to rent an apartment, and my kids would have starved to death. For her not to have a job today. Today, the man and the woman have to have a job. They have no time to raise the children. The children get raised by the school system. The school system turns them into Satanists. And everybody hates each other. And we get a divorce. And now my life is ruined. That's today. Versus 70 years ago, I would have had enough money to pay for her and my 2 kids. We could have maintained that house or apartment. Satan has completely screwed us. All right, I'll shut up. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women. There it is. So that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. That's it. That sums it up right there. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. So what did they do with Vashti? They don't really go into detail. I'd imagine she was probably hung, but the Medo-Persian laws, it doesn't seem like they have as much pull, You see indicators of this with, why can't the king immediately stop Haman's law from coming to pass? You'd think if he's the absolute dictator, he could just, boom, get rid of that law. No Jews are getting executed right now. The law is gone. He can't do that. It's almost like from Nebuchadnezzar to Xerxes, there's a decrease in the authority of the king. And there's more of a rule by a mob type authority. It's another sign of that. I don't know. Just a thought. Because you'd think he would just be able to strike that down, but he's worried about, okay. 20. And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. Now, I'm not saying that man should dominate and beat his wife and all that, It's what it talks about in Corinthians is more of an equal partnership, She completes him, and he completes her. Christianity isn't saying, well, now you have the right to beat your wife because she's your property. So, I don't think so. It's not. That's Satan manipulating that situation. Satan making the husbands fat, worthless slobs that beat their wives, like my coworker. She's a wonderful lady. She didn't deserve that to happen. To have all those kids and then for the husband to do that to her, it's just heartbreaking, you know. You point the finger at her and say, you know, blame her for all that, or now that she's a lesbian, you know, you point your finger at her and accuse her of all this. And the reality is, I completely understand why she did what she did. And the husband, I don't understand why you know, he had a beautiful wife and kids by her. He could have lived happily ever after with her and his family. But instead, he chose to beat his wife. It's unbelievable how Satan manipulates the situation. And then the continuous results is what's happening now. Why are women so unhappy? Why are men so unhappy? Why do men choose not to pursue women today? What advantage do I have in pursuing any woman today? Everything's geared toward the advantage of feminism and the woman. So what advantage do I have? You know? There's a lot to think about, a lot to discuss with that. The point is, she is mine, but I am hers. I am her property. I'm a slave to her now. But she is also mine. But she completes me, I complete her, and it's a lot to talk about, but we'll stop. Chapter 2, next time. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.